Thank you, and dobry dzień. So that's almost everything I can say. So I'm also very honored to be able to talk to you today, and especially about this topic, because I'm really passionate about it. And as I heard, some of you are designers, and I hope you are also passionate about this. So, and yeah, I have also prepared a very lean and easy agenda, only 3 points. I want to begin with design systems and what they actually are and why are they good, or maybe they're not good. And second, the big topic of consistency. I think as a designer or as a developer, a lot of times when we talk about designs, people are talking about consistency. This is not consistent. We need to keep it. But why do we actually need to do that? And the third point is I want to give you some insight how we work with design systems and how the collaboration between design and development is. So between me and mostly Andrew, who's also in my team. Okay, let's start. First point. So this is a quote from Brad Frost. You may have heard from him. He's the father of the term atomic design, which we will talk later about. I really like this approach because it sums up everything about design systems. And I took this example here because it kind of resembles the idea of a design system. So back then, when the old cars were built, each car was manufactured individually, part by part. And the car, like, let's do one car, let's do the next one, and everything was individually manufactured, which led to, like, it is impossible to maintain. You don't know, like, the quality changes over time. You lose track. You cannot track down the manufacturing of those cars. So what they did is they introduced the assembly line and put down the cars into its pieces. And the same applies to our products these days. So I put out here 3 different products that we have, 3 different web applications. So we don't just have the Flixbus website, we also have some connecting websites. On the top left, we also have a sub-product, which is where you can charter a whole bus. And also on the right, this is a website where you can get like a voucher pass for a whole Europe trip. And if we all continue looking at each website on its own, we have the same problem like the car manufacturers. We cannot maintain that in the long run. And as you heard before from Eric's talk, we currently have 20 or multiple teams, like 28 I think at the moment, and they're all autonomous on their own. It's like, how do you maintain that if you consider one web page as one item? So the idea is modularity is the key to keep the maintenance possible. So here I show you one example from our website. It's the search result page. So a user has performed a search here. And what is the beginning to become modular is you need to identify your website. First of all, you need to understand, okay, it's not just a website, it's an addition of components. And like Brad Frost introduced, they can be gathered into atoms, molecules, organisms, templates, and pages, which means atoms, things that cannot really be cut down in smaller pieces. So a button, an input field, so this example already could also be a molecule already because it's a combination of a text element, an icon, and an input field, with an icon actually. But the button here, the button there, this text element, the logo, this text element, this icon, they are one unit. You cannot break it down, so it's an atom. The next step is, like, it's always debatable when it's a molecule and becomes an organism, so, but it's more of the idea of components. So I tried to do that with that page. We have a header, which is one component. We have a booking mask, we have a shopping cart, we have a headline, we have a date switcher, as we call it. You have the search results, and you have a filter and sorting bar on the left. And that's basically the first step into becoming and introducing a design system, that you identify those components for your website. This is the basically what I refer to from Brad Frost. I can highly recommend his book, Atomic Design. And this is basically the main idea of his whole book. It's really very nice. Yeah, and he had basically put together how that compares to each other with a car and a website. So instead of a steering wheel, we have a button. Yeah, and in general, for style guides, anything that's made out of pixels should go in there. If it's your source of truth in the future and you want to scale design in your company with that, everything must be in there. If it's not in there, what you will have is that people try to invent their need. They try to solve their problem. If there's no solution in there, they start to create something on their own, which I will compare to or add later, which is good, but it has to be happening in a structured manner. So yeah, I will get to that later. Now the second part. So what we achieve with that design system is consistency. And just wanted to quickly talk about why is that actually important and why do we care. So here I try to very quickly do like a mock-up of different website pages that we have. And what I would try to show you is the basic layout is kind of similar, but it's not the same. You can see the button styles, the color is slightly different. The text alignment is on the left, sometimes it's centered. The colors, like I said, yeah. So slightly differences, and I think designers will spot them right away, but sometimes customer, like they don't think about the website in terms of let's identify all the inconsistencies. It's more of I have a feeling about the website. I feel in a certain way, and that happens on a subconscious level, and it's not always so in your face that you can right away spot it. Sometimes it's really on a subtle level, the inconsistency. And if something like this happens, what can happen is that users feel like this. They don't know, like they wouldn't tell you, I don't like your product because the call to action color switches from page to page. All they would give back as an answer to you is like, I don't know, like feels weird. I don't know what it is. And that's basically an item what will continue from that is that people will have the tendency to have less trust in your product. It feels to them like unstable, and of course, like the website or the product is a window into the company, right? That people will make a judgment of the whole product. So in our case, could be the website is inconsistent, feels weird, unstable. They will probably have similar buses. So this is a danger that could be like because it's a representation of the company. The second part is when you have multiple products like we do, if it doesn't look the same, people can think it's not the same, right? Simple as that. So there you need to have the recognition in the brand, and therefore consistency is super important. Also, as you know, like when you get an email that kind of looks like the company, that doesn't really look like the company, these days you have to be watching out what you're clicking on. So this could also be a danger, that people think like, okay, this is not trustworthy. And overall, as a user, I'm just uncomfortable. I feel like things are changing. They're not the same as I've seen on the previous page. It's like I just don't enjoy the product because I feel like on each page I might have to learn something new. I cannot rely on something that I've seen before or learned before on the previous page in it, for example. Yeah, and yeah, now I would like to show you something like how we collaborate, how we organize the design and the front-end part and the collaboration. And I will heavily focus on the design part because I cannot talk too much about the front-end part. That's Andrew's part. So my choice of software at the moment is Adobe XD. So I know there's a lot of Sketch users out there, so maybe that would interest me. How many Sketch users are in here? Everybody? Okay. XD? Yes. 2. Nice. Yeah, so I somehow got into XD and I really, really like it. And with each version they improve over time, so check it out. Use Sketch users. And everything will show you here is totally doable in Sketch. Sometimes I must say even better. But basically XD can do everything that Sketch can do, just in a different approach in the detail. So what I do in order to keep the consistency and make the design system work from a designer's perspective is that I have a file like this, which is the UI kit as like different artboards where all the components that we standardized are available for designing with them. So it's provided, you can download it as a designer, and you can basically copy paste that into your new project. This is basically available on a centralized website everybody has access to, and that way you can make sure that the right components are always in use and basically are spread across the company. Additionally, of course, if there's a change, you need to somehow also notify. So Slack channels, whatever feels comfortable for your environment, needs also happening, that people are aware, hey, you might have an outdated UI kit in use, now is a new version with, I don't know, 3 more colors or something like that. So, yeah. And also what I provide is, especially in the communication to development, XD supports something called design specs. You may know also like some third-party software for Sketch, also XD, which is called Zeppelin or similar, where you can translate your design artboards into inspectable websites with the components where you get all the details. So you can click on things like here. So this is the web view of the XD artboard, and here we have some form element that was clicked on, and on the right side you can see all the details, which improves the communication to developers. So, and it's the same file basically. You have also one source of truth for those components from a design perspective. What I also created, and to make it easier to reuse the same components when you design new projects, is a template file. So this is a blank page basically. It's available next to the UI kit where you can just have a fresh start, because I basically created it in the first place because I was tired of looking at other projects for the components, and like how many times I just looked for a tablet header. Like I remember which project was that, like I was just tired of it. So once or for all I saved it one place, and now it's like I don't have to deal with it anymore. So I can just download it, and I know everything is there that I need. So here on the left also all the colors, all the typography, and here we have some smart components. That's basically the molecule level that I was mentioning before. Additionally to that, so here also expand a little bit more, so there are all the buttons in there, some components that are being reused all over repetitively. And also there is Adobe Creative Cloud library with all the icons that we have in place. So we have also a centered approach in the iconography of the company. Yeah, that's basically the design part, and that's basically translated into our design system / living style guide. So these words are kind of like approach are meaning the same. We call it Honeycomb. It's a tip for our team. If you create a design system, give it a cool name, make it easier to talk about. And yeah, so we call it Honeycomb. It has a logo, and basically all the components that were created in the XD master file with all the artboards basically are being translated into the front end here. And this is basically the main tool for front-end developers and all the other teams. So they basically can always look what's been added, what components are there to rebuild their products with it. Yeah, just another example. So you can see like here's always a description, the element itself, the visual part, and an code example. What is very important, so we have 2 layers. We have the design part and the front end part, that they're always in sync, so that you don't have something on the website that's not in the design, so the designer or another designer like sees this on the website, hey, this is cool component, I want to design with it, and doesn't find it in the UI kit. This is bad, and the other way around, of course. You design something that's not already as a component available. So that's tricky from both sides. So it's very important that you keep those 2 things always in sync. Nice side effect is, if you have a design system in place and a style guide, you can do more of those things. So you're faster in designing because the components are defined. They're centralized and documented, and you can just, I mean, I really did too much here, so that's just to show the extreme here, but you know what I mean. You don't have to be pixel perfect anymore. Like how many times in the past I had to, or like because I want to be as specific as possible, it's like, can you shift this by 1 pixel? It's one too many, and the font size is wrong, and the line height, please change it here and there. All those things will less happen. They will not happen as much as they used to be, because this is centralized, and the developer actually doesn't have to think about the design in specifics anymore. All they will care about is the layout and putting the components together. So it's also saving time for designers. Yeah. A little bit about the team setup. So Luki, Andrew, and I, also Uliana and Lucy, are in the team here. We basically are together. You could call us like the style guide team or design system team that tries to build the system, and that's basically all the team members are doing. So how we keep the maintenance of the living style guide. So in the beginning, in the perfect world, Luki has organized something where we gained user insight, qualitative user insight. We found a problem with a component. Then we translate that, meaning we may find a UI solution that solves that problem. After that, we also tested, automated testing, Uliana will take care of. And we provide it on the website for all developers to use, so we can spread the knowledge that we gathered in the first place in the best and efficient way to all the teams. So the teams, they don't have to care about the UI components in detail. They know it's tested. They know they can rely on it, and they get recommendation, and it's easy to use. But also here, as I mentioned before, there are also components maybe that are not available, too unique. Like you cannot serve all the components in the world out there. If you have multiple products, it's just not maintainable also from the team's perspective. So a good approach is to be open source minded, that people from other teams can contribute to the system for a very unique component that only they have. So that needs to be also in place, if needed, yeah. Yeah. And the last part I want to mention is some basics in the style guide that we included, which I would recommend that you also include if you're thinking about introducing a design system. And that's, first of all, now we talked about components, but they're also invisible or not as visible components of a design system which provide consistency, which is responsive breakpoints and patterns. So basically the underlying order of elements, what kind of column, gutter width you have, and all those things you should define in the first place to make the looks of multiple products the same, also on every device. Yeah, as shown before, include code snippets to make the communication to development as efficient as possible, so that you can directly relate to the visual and basically the code view. Give your components names that give them a name for the most general use, so that you can understand in what context to use that. So they can be related to input fields, but also buttons. Don't just call them button 1, 2, 3. Give them a name, like this is a success button, or this is the primary button, this is the danger button, or something like that. Something that you can think of, it's to be used for that context and that context only. Makes communication also way more efficient. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. How do you think, how many designers have to know about technology that uses for web, for application development?
How much you should know as a designer about technology?
About technology, what frameworks you use, maybe how it works, what is most good practice for use for CSS, or JavaScript.
Yeah, I think JavaScript, everything, like the more you know as a designer about any technology, the better. So I would focus, of course, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Like when to choose these three, and may not even in that order. So CSS maybe with a stronger focus. I believe you should. Like it's not good if you don't know anything at all. So if you don't know anything at all, you should learn it, at least the very basics, like just about content, visual and interaction or functionality, that you understand the basics, and also a little bit more detail to see already, like you don't want to ask for any specifics, like is that possible? And is that possible? How about I do that? Is that possible? So you need to also have, as a designer, a little bit of imagination, or you need to understand what basics are possible. So I would say, like, you need to know at least a little bit. Yeah, but not too much, I think.
Oh yeah, thanks. Are you able to convert all your products to align with style guide?
We have the vision. It's of course no overnight thing. Even quarter, not even a year. Like we have 28 teams, and it's a challenge to convert teams, and it's basically a keynote on its own how to roll out a design system inside a company if it's not known before. So it requires very, very much information and communication. And the key to make a team convert is to highlight what problems you solve for them. If you make the team understand, like how many times did we have feedback cycles between design and front end? It's like, if we implement this right, this will be in the past. We don't have to talk about micro design specifics, like line height or colors. Those are predefined if we implement this right. And those are the key arguments to convince teams. But it's not always up to the team. Sometimes the team wants to, but cannot right away. So you have to plan that in the roadmap of the team to make it happen.
Yeah, one question. What about animations and all the interaction stuff?
Absolutely.
Stating it.
I had it in the presentation because it said it's still in the backlog. I took it out, but it belongs. It belongs into the style guide. So if there is no documentation about animation, you still have maybe that developer thinks, oh, I introduced an animation here, and you know, like you put a developer in the position. It's unclear for me right now, so I have to do something. So it should definitely be part of the design system. So the very basics of animation. Yeah, but it's to be done by us. Like we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, but I don't. For example, if you will be successful with all the stuff, do you have a plan to dictate your styles out of IT, like posters, colors, company, like logos, buses?
No. Dictatorship we wouldn't choose. So it's really about, again, like convincing people to understand the benefits.
I need convince you.
So right now, I mean, we have already enough to do with only web applications at the moment. I mean, the next step would also be mobile applications, right? But we are still on web, and then we need to step by step. Of course, in a perfect world, everything is consistent and the same. But as idealistic I am, I also realized you will never achieve 100%. It's impossible. So sometimes you have to say, okay, 90% is already outstanding for an organization of that scale. Bye.
Thank you for your talk. Who is responsible for providing code snippets for a design system, designer or front-end developer?
Front-end developer.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're in close collaboration since we're in one team. We do this directly, and basically front-end translates that.
When you change some elements, how do you update 20 products about the change?
I think Andrew will maybe mention that in his talk, so I will make it brief. We have a versioned UI kit, or Honeycomb is versioned, so teams will basically get 1.1 version, where you also have some sort of change log, so you know what's inside, what has been changed. But you can also update to the newer version, so you can download the newer one or refer to the new one. And That's basically how we solve
The
that.
products really follow it?
I'm sorry?
The products really update in time? Like once you deliver the new version of the style guide?
Yeah, so yeah, we
You
have.
pay attention at all.
So we basically have also a roadmap where we show all the components that we wanted to introduce in the next sprint or in the next quarter. And there are also releases in there you can basically follow outside of the team. And once they've been like updated, you can transition to the newer version and see also what's included in the newer version. Did that answer the question? No.
You should force them.
Yeah. Yeah, we cannot force the teams to update, unfortunately, but it's a manual, intentional manual step. Because like you may break things within your version, but you cannot force the teams. Like again, it's not like we maintain the style guide or design system, but we are not the gatekeepers or the holy people that spread the word, right? Everybody should feel like they belong to it and they have a benefit from it. So if the team must feel like I always want to have the newer version because new fresh components, awesome. That should be the attitude, right? And the other way around, just to forcing people, hey, I've seen you didn't update now, is not the right approach.
Thank you.
When you get the new component or change the existing component, do you get any real user testing before you get it into the style guide and get it used by all the teams? Or is it just your idea, okay, here's the problem, we solve it this way, we think it's gonna work?
Normally, no. So, I mean, hen or egg, what is first, right? You design a component, or did you like, normally you create like the first button you come up with. You feel like, okay, this is matching with the brand colors, this is my approach right now. So you document that. So that's basically how we approached it. So we are at a very early stage. So a lot of components that we have in the style guide are on the website. So we rely on experience that we have it in place for a long time. Normally, so with what Luki already said with the card, you may remember for the previous talk, where there was the arrow missing, and people on mobile web didn't consider I could click here. So that kind of feedback that we would basically learn from that way, change it in the next version, and provide it that way. But like horizontal navigation, when we have no indicator that it's not good performing well or people don't understand it, we don't change it. So we try to stick to user insight. There's a problem, oh, it's this element, and then we change it. But of course, there are elements that have to be there, and like you have to have something in order to test it.
I mean, okay, you get the comments that this isn't working, this arrow isn't working. You change it the way, and then you get the where do you get the confirmation that now it's working? Mm-hmm. Do you have any interim testing on the users, or you just throw it in and you get only the final user acceptance on that arrow?
I mean, if the solution that we came up with is working now.
Yeah, is it working or not?
Yeah, I mean, this depends what kind of feature it is. But you could test, in this case, how many people are clicking on it, right? So you could see how many people will proceed from this page to the next one. And that's basically one KPI you could take in this scenario to see, okay, how many are actually proceeding to the next step. Did you achieve that the visual now indicates that you can click here?
So it's fine on user to show you that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
And how you keep in a balance between too simple and too complicated style guide?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I mean, we keep the balance in terms of that we challenge each other all the time. So front end and design. So sometimes I have an idea, let's include that, and entering that point of view then says, we already have something like that, it's pretty similar. Why don't you make it the same? It's like, oh shit, yeah, forgot about that element. Actually, we can make it the same. Or the other way around, that something is being implemented or was brought up, we could introduce that, and I feel like that's from the context, it's the exact same element, only visually different that we already have there. That's, I believe, how we currently approach it. Like currently challenging, don't just accept. Like just because somebody has an idea, like it's included, make him or her explain a little bit more why. And also always look what is already there and try to see if this already maybe solves your problem. It's like how Luki said, don't focus on the idea or the solution that you might have. I need this pop-up. And you don't find a pop-up as a component, but is not having a pop-up the problem you want to solve? Maybe you can solve that with something else that is already in place. That's, yeah.
It's time to choose the best.
Oh, one more question.
If you understand, does your project has such phrases as rectangle, rectangle 2, or group 17?
I didn't understand the question. Sorry.
You said that that we should to give our components names, and they should to be understandable for us. And does your project has such phrases as rectangle, rectangle 2, group 17, group 3?
No, I don't think so. No. Yes? No. No, not that I know of. So normally they really have names for their use, but it's yeah, trying to relate to what their purpose is.
And do you have some name conventions in your components or content snippets?
We do.
That's a bit later.
You can see to the previous questions how far my knowledge sometimes is in terms of technology. So I fully trust Andrew in those questions, and he will approach this question in his talk. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.